thing that I really want to acknowledge and dig in on today is fear. I think we are really operating in a context that is heavily impacted by fear at a lot of different levels. And I think it's important for us to understand psychologically how that impacts individuals and organizations, and for us to think through data-driven strategies for combating that fear and helping people show up in a psychologically safe context. So that's my focus today.
I think for me, what stood out the most was the mix of optimism and fatigue that people are experiencing. That there's still a really strong desire for folks to make workplaces more inclusive and engaging. But also there's some honest frustration about the pace that's happening. And it just really reinforces the importance to me that leaders really need to keep listening and acting with urgency and not just intention. So that's what really stood out for me from the comments and the results that we read.
The biggest pitfall for us to avoid right now is hopelessness. I think that us highlighting some of the sort of more detracting comments is a helpful reality check for a lot of us who, increasingly as our algorithms push us into these kind of homogenous silos to get exposure, right? To what an opposing opinion really looks and feels like is really important for us. And I think that it's also very important for us to remember that this work did not start in 2020, right? We are standing on the shoulders of giants who have been building up this profession, DEI, which goes by so many other names, for decades, right, and generations. And so we have been through challenging moments before. I admit this one is particularly nuanced, but we've been here before, and we have decades of research showing us that DEI is not only a moral imperative, but that it drives business results. And we have the skill, we have the expertise, and we have the history that shows us that we can survive this moment stronger and by adding value to the organizations that we're a part of. I think it's super important for all of us to remember that we need to shape our message to meet not only people exactly where they're at, but to make sense and to add value to the organizations that we're supporting. So that's kind of my rally cry here is take heart, avoid despair, do not lose hope. We have been here before, and we can continue this work by getting extra strategic and proving our value.
Even before doing training, I think role clarity is so important. Meaning, sometimes we have ERG leaders, executive sponsors that don't even know what ERGs are for. What is the goal of an ERG? What are the leaders supposed to do? So again, Michael, you said something about organically versus strategically. We need to figure out first, we need to be strategic, right? We need to figure out what are the key competencies we want ERG leaders to have. I'd like to say the ability to work across difference. I want to say also competencies you definitely want ERG leaders to have.
The accessibility and the use of data is fairly inconsistent still across many organizations. So I think that's still a pain point that we run into. And in the absence of clear data, it's sometimes hard to prove ROI as DEI is coming under, I don't like the word attack, trying to use nonviolent language, but as DEI comes under attack or whatnot, I think being able to get scrappy with data is going to be critical going forward if you don't have formal data. And using data to inform decisions is something that I think came up a lot, and something that I think all of us as panelists kind of anticipated, because it's going to be critical as we move forward.
From a strategic perspective, you need to look at it in terms of establishing some sort of metric that you'll be held accountable for, because for a lot of organizations, it is maybe not equivalent in terms of how one might measure success to the other, but internally to their organization, if they've done some sort of analysis assessment to see who they are, what their capacity, what their capability is, and use that as their North Star, then that's how you can establish what the success of that would be, organization by organization.
In today's environment, the shift needed is really identifying a way to lock DEI into that value creation engine and not keeping it in the margins. Similar to how, and I think Shalita, you mentioned this earlier, how organizations have embedded environmental sustainability across operations, This is an opportunity to tie every initiative to hard KPIs that reduce cost to serve or improve conversion. And additionally, make those results auditable. Customers should reward brands with public scorecards. Investors must really demand verified metrics and filings, and boards need to link executive pay to these customer outcomes. The bottom line, when DEI is built into operations and measured on business results, it withstands pushback because it's tangibly creating value for everyone.